The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order! The Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels, is now in possession. Grudge Big Ben Haslar presiding. Will you all please dies for the horrible Grudge Haslar?
Sit, if you dare. Welcome to the Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels! Today we're hearing the case of The People versus Stigmata, a supernatural horror feature about a young woman who experiences the wounds of Christ and becomes the center of a conflict between the Catholic Church and the priests investigating the phenomenon. For those of you unfamiliar with our spooky court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie, and if so, it shall be cast for all eternity into the fiery pits of movie hell, upon which this courthouse just so happens to be built. Mr. Maynard Bangs, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor, esteemed members of the court, Scaretaker. How do? We sometimes discuss here in this court a film's ability to be timeless. And the existence of timeless films implies the existence of the opposite, of time-full films. And that is what we are dealing with here today in Stigmata. Because you could not confuse the time Stigmata was made for any other period of cinema other than the late 90s. From its desperately Fincher-esque aesthetics, the drastic lighting and shadow choices, the desaturated visuals, to its incessantly alternative rock soundtrack, the film practically screams, "Rent me at Blockbuster! You can keep up to 3 films out for 5 days!" It repeatedly hits you in the face with how 90s it is, which is to say, what they thought was edgy and new at the time, but has since aged to be passé and, as the kids say, cringe. Imagine how that's gonna age. And that is a risk a filmmaker takes when they incorporate trendy new styles into their films to try to appeal to maybe a younger audience, despite, say, the film's plot probably boring those people, and the elements of the film clashing against those choices. Look, 90s films, most of them have aged like fine milk, and the pale imitators and coattail riders of the era are the worst of all, and Stigmata is guilty of being both. The more we look back on this decade, as fondly as we often want to, we're just too frequently reminded that, though for most of us this was a simpler time, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a better one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. Appearing on behalf of the defense and giving a time-full defense of Stigmata at CK, please present your opening statement.
So, first of all, I'd like to take a little bit of contention with the word time full. I don't like random words being thrown in without actual proper definitions. I feel that turns us into a hopping kangaroo court. And my opening statement can be brought down to 2 sentences. You should not be asking whether or not 1999 Stigmata should be sent to hell. You should be asking why it was sent from hell to us.
Ooh, it escaped.
I said 2 sentences, I'm pretty sure.
We'll count it. Mr. Maynard, you may present your first exhibit.
I'm not charging anyone by the sentences. I hope not. I can't afford it. But it would be very 90s too, right? So Patricia Arquette is a hairdressing non-believer living in Pittsburgh who has suddenly started experiencing a stigmata, which historically has afflicted only the very devout. Nuns, priests, saints. It's also historically been found to be repeatedly fraudulent, so do with that information what you will. So this is a rather promising premise to start out. Arquette, an atheist, now has to confront undeniable evidence of the divine. Surely that will give her character a lot to wrestle with emotionally, right? Being suddenly thrust into the deep end of metaphysics. It's also concrete proof of the divine in the hands of Gabriel Byrne's character, a priest whose job it is to debunk miracles for whatever reason. Apparently, the church is in the business of debunking the very miracles that help perpetuate, like their mythology. But imagine what they can do with objective proof. Like, they can really start turning their numbers around, right? But the movie doesn't intend to explore any of these juicy bits. Instead, it devolves into a run-of-the-mill possession storyline where we found out Arquette suffers from stigmata because she's possessed by the spirit of a priest who was a stigmatic. He's like trying to convey a message about a lost gospel of Jesus that the church has supposedly suppressed since 1945. So the movie abandons the potential it has with the stigmata idea in favor of becoming like a trope-laced exorcist pastiche, repeatedly using these over-edited sequences with quick cuts of violent imagery and Arquette screaming. We even see her levitate over a bed at one point, which doesn't really make any sense, because if she's possessed by a priest, not a demon, why can she, like levitate and stuff?
So CK, there's a lot that they could have gone deeper on with the stigmata. Did they drop the ball there?
None of that actually really matters. So let me set the actual stage for you here. We're talking about 1999. If you're as old as I am, you remember 1999 was a time when we were about to turn over to another millennium. Did anyone expect this movie to come out when it did? Are you aware that Gabriel Byrne was in another 1999 hell movie called End of Days? Doesn't it seem strange then that this film about possession and Catholicism and exorcisms would suddenly be just shoved out of nowhere with Patricia Arquette and Portia Del Rossi? This entire cast of what? What are you doing here? Did anyone ever stop to wonder why? I tried to warn you of this at the very beginning. Now I'm getting into it. This film cannot be sent back to hell because this film is evil sent from hell, and it succeeded in what it was sent here to do. And you're asking yourselves, what could it have been sent here to do? My friends, it was sent here to pave the way for the Passion of the Christ in 2004. There's no way we would have taken that thing as seriously as we did. There's no way that frickin' film would have set the stage for the Christian nationalism that plagues our entire American United States if we didn't have stigmata getting thrown out there to make all of you doubt the validity of the Passion.
Oh no, Mr. Maynard, I'm quite sure you didn't prepare this in your notes. What do you have to say?
I didn't at all, but I'd like to flip it as a pro on my side. This thing paved the way for Passion of the Christ and a lot of Christian nationalism. I call that a negative.
But are we not here? Are we not here? Is this court not here to send a film to hell, i.e. to find the film guilty? I am coming at this saying it cannot be done and should not be done, as this is a weapon from hell. The best thing that we can do is leave it alone.
We do weigh intentionality in this courtroom.
Technically, I think if we flush it and it bounces back, I mean, we did all we can, but we sent it, But I'm down with getting into church stuff because I want to talk about, because this movie kind of devolves into a church conspiracy, presumably one that goes all the way to the top, which is God, I suppose. So, but I want to talk because I researched plenty about this. About this supposed heretical text, the Gospel of Thomas, which a title card at the end of the film claims the Vatican refuses to recognize. That's true. It's non-canonical, and has described as heresy. And that's false. Now, besides being a transparently pathetic attempt to duct tape something meaningful into the last 30 seconds of the movie about a naked girl thrashing around in a tub, I don't want the filmmakers to sit here and pretend that they give a shit about canonical law or ecclesiastical oversight. The closest they've ever been to church is chicken for an extra crispy 6-piece. So, don't try to stir up manufactured outrage about a dusty old scroll you didn't read just to give your film the illusions of substance. There are many gospels that are not officially canon, right? And that's sometimes because the church wants to censor their content, but other times it's just because it's boring. And the Gospel of Thomas falls into the latter category. It's what's known as a sayings gospel, basically just a collection of quotes attributed to Jesus with no context given. Things like, Jesus said, "He who is near me is near the fire, and he who is far from me is far from the kingdom." Thanks, Jesus. Real handy if we're going camping, but otherwise, so the point is 2/3 of the quotes in this gospel are already in the official canonical gospels as well, and better contextualized. So this gospel is literally just like a greatest hits, and now that's what I call Jesus Volume 8. It contains no information that could challenge or destroy the church at all. And the thing is, the movie had a blank slate. It could have made up a gospel that did these things, or it could have chosen an actual heretical text like the Gospel of Philip, which describes Jesus's romantic relationship with Mary Magdalene, and happened to also be included in the same library in Egypt in 1945, the Nag Hammadi Codex. They could have basically beaten the Da Vinci Code to the punch 4 years earlier and seriously cashed in.
Do you think this is a good setup, or is Maynard like a little bit too by the letters here?
Huh? Oh no, I'm so sorry, Court. The second I heard gospel, I just fell straight asleep. But I do want to give some kudos to the prosecution for figuring out that God would be the head of the Christian church. Well done. Well done. Example 1 of why Stigmata is a weapon of hell that should not be sent back to the depths of hell, where it will only gain power and possibly be sent back upon us to finally destroy us in full. The band Chumbawamba.
Oh, no.
That's right. So you probably noticed at the very top, music by Billy Corgan, as the head of Smashing Pumpkins and also the man who somehow didn't enjoy a Disneyland ride. He did not write the entire music. He kind of pulled out, what was the vampire movie? Queen of the Damned on us, where it could have been all of him, but really instead we just have a combination of different artists. One of those artists is the band known as Chumbawamba. You may know them from their single Tub Thumping. What you may not know about them is that they are actually an anarchist band. Multiple times over the years has an alt-right group tried to use Tub Thumping as a means of pumping up their own rallies. These times were in 2016 and then again in 2020. And what happened right after that? How well did things go after 2016? What thing happened in 2020 that could have destroyed and may actually have destroyed our entire society? Stigmata is not just a movie. It's a movie sent to make you doubt in the power of hell. If they had used actual gospel, actual real stuff in there, you'd be tearing it the fuck apart. You would have nothing but doubts for it, and you wouldn't take it seriously. And if they had just made up something new and been very creative, you might have been a little bit more invested in it. Then you might have known how to fight it. That was not their goal. Their goal was to make you sleep on it. Their goal was to make you think you were smarter than hell, but you weren't. We weren't. Passion of the Christ still happened in 2004. We have the fucking 10 Commandments in public schools now, and it's all thanks to not paying attention to Stigmata when it came through for technicalities.
Maynard, did you get knocked down? Are you going to get back up again?
Well, I'd like to make an objection. If this movie was sent from hell, we're sending it to movie hell, which is actually, it's sort of a borough.
It's a different neighborhood.
Yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
knows movie hell's a subsidiary of regular
it's a subsidiary,
hell,
exactly.
Okay?
But
don't pull the Amazon shit on me.
I think there may be a loophole where it might not get bounced back, or at least it's going to take a 36-hour processing time. So it's going to spend a little bit.
It's not on Amazon. It's probably made by individual small business. Hell is hell. You know it, and I know it.
Now, there are some good actors in this movie. Unfortunately, they don't do much good acting. Gabriel Byrne is likely to earn that name in movie hell. He's really just going through the motions here, reciting dialogue. Same with Jonathan Pryce. You never lose him in the role. He's doing that sort of, that high eyebrow acting thing he does, the voice. But again, no one's home. They both just seem to be aware of how silly the movie is, and they treat it like a job. Then they do it. But because they don't really believe what they're saying, neither do you. And Patricia Arquette, I like Patricia Arquette in a lot of her stuff, but in here, I think she works best as like the disaffected hairdresser. But all of her anguished acting, the pun intended, during like the Stigmata sequences, the possession sequences, they just come off as goofy rather than I think they were supposed to be scary. A lot of performers might be able to carry off this scene, but I don't think Patricia pulls off that much. And a lot of the movie rides on those Stigmata and possession scenes being fun and carrying the movie.
What say you about the acting, CK?
Evidence example observation number 2. Gabriel Byrne and Patricia Arquette. This is not their first Hell movie, is it? No, this is at least their 2nd. We already mentioned End of Days for Gabriel Byrne. Later on, we're going to get Patricia Arquette and Little Nicky. Coincidence?
Oh, wow.
I don't think so. Hell can see future, present, and past. They knew exactly what was in store for those 2 actors. They lulled you into a sense of complacency with their so-called poor acting, when the truth is that they are unknown tools of hell themselves, meant to sell this weapon out to us, again, to calm us into allowing the passion of the Christ to come through.
So it's intentionally hellish.
I think if you add up the letters Patricia Arquette, it equals 666. I think that is true.
And then divide by
but again, I think that these are all still points in my favor. We can send it to hell and punish it for all of these things. And here's going to be my last point, Your Honor. We've already touched on the bad title card ending because it's basically silly and the book is harmless. But let's talk about the kiss at the end, which gives Rise of Skywalker a run for its money for unearned ending kisses. Not only did these 2 characters not have any real romantic attachment to each other throughout the film, they honestly had no relationship at all. Most of the time they spend together, she's not consciously in control of her body. They haven't had any time to get to know each other. Every conversation they have is about Stigmata. And Gabriel Byrne, he's clearly a super devout priest, right? Even at the end of this. He might be excommunicated from the church, maybe even self-imposed, but he's certainly still a righteous man of God. No doubt a bigger believer than ever after these experiences. So why would he break his vows of chastity for Patricia Arquette, a woman he just met like 2 days ago, who has spent most of the time screaming, bleeding, and hovering over her bed? It's dumb, it's unearned, it's the movie flailing in its death throes in the last few moments because it knows it's failed to put anything meaningful on screen for the last 100 minutes. And with that, the prosecution will rest.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. CK, do you have any rebuttals to the relationship? Is it a little too forced? Does the heart want what it wants?
All you're showing me is that the film worked on you. That is all you're showing me. You found all of these different points of contention to not take the point seriously, which is that hell was coming to Earth. Of course their kiss was awkward. They're 2 tools of hell, man. Don't believe metal music. When 2 tools of hell try to make out, it feels really fucking weird. So listen here, Bezos. Hell is hell. You cannot send this thing back there. It will only come back twice as powerful as a reboot.
Oh no.
Ooh.
That probably will happen. Oh
what,
no.
starring Anya Taylor-Joy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. CK, you may present any other exhibits you have in defense of the film.
Ladies and gentlemen, people, that works. People, I've tried
Mortals.
to save you
like
from
mortals.
yourself.
Mortals, yes.
All right, take 2. Mortals! I've tried to warn
I don't
you.
count.
I have seen every religious horror movie possible. I've been there for Exorcist. I was there for The Exorcist of Emily Rose. I was there for The Exorcist Redux. I was there for The Exorcist re-release with the extra files. I have been to religious horror. I have kneeled at the religious horror altar. I know a weapon when I see it. I know true evil. And true evil doesn't come with a gun. True evil doesn't even stand at the pulpit of a Catholic church. True evil comes on the magnetic tape of a VHS called Stigmata. It came in 1999. It came here to open the door for the Passion of the Christ, one of the most popular films of the year, to still be canon, to get a sequel. It came here for people to believe the Passion of the Christ is anything other than the Jesus Chainsaw Massacre, so that we would get to this point where even the craziest religious shit pales in comparison. You cannot send Stigmata back to hell, and yes, hell is hell, Bezos. It will come back as a reboot. It will take over this earth. You will be reading the 10 Commandments from this court by next year! And that's it.
No!
I could parody the 10 Commandments.
Is that what this is? Because that's funny.
Let's hear it, Mr. Maynard. Do you have a comparison?
Give me a year.
Okay, all right. But we'll be talking about Resurrection with Christopher Lambert at that point. Do you have any further exhibits in defense of the film, CK?
No, I don't know what more you need to hear aside from the possibility of a national religious apocalypse.
Yeah, it's hard to top that. Very well. Both sides have rested their cases. Mr. Maynard, you may present your closing argument.
Good. I'm glad we get so silly, so I'm not going to feel as bad about this ending here.
You're not going to take off your pants, are you?
And that does not work in a sound show, unfortunately.
Zip.
If I could tell the jury just one thing, it would be that this film's guilty. And not to worry how badly it burns when we send it to movie hell. 'Cause this whole plot was useless. Nobody even seemed to care. If she's supposed to be possessed by a priest, how come she can levitate up in the air? Her hands, they have these holes, but they're not hers, they are the Lord's. But they're not hers, they are the Lord's, and they are always bleeding. Her hands, they have these holes, but they're not hers, they are the Lord's, and they're not hers, they are the Lord's, and they are always guilty.
Thank
Did
you,
not
sir.
know we were going in that direction.
Man, what a timeful.
Is that Jewel or is that Enya?
It was
Jewel.
Jewel, and it was 1998. I was so happy it was so timeful, too.
Timeful. And here to give a timeful rendition of some other 1998 song, or not, it's CK with a defending closing.
I have to say that I don't feel that these proceedings have been very fair.
Agreed.
I don't find this to be a very fair court. Because any man who would use Jewel to prove his point to send a weapon of hell back to hell is a tool of hell himself. I say this whole thing should be stricken. I say Stigmata should be buried, as I have been arguing. And I say the man who is possessed by Jewel should be taken outside and wholly flogged, timefully.
I'll flog myself later.
No. You'll do that while the jury will deliberate.
Ugh.
And those members of the jury, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. Hey, you know what's scarier than not believing in God? Believing in Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
I think you mean not believing in Ryan Luis.
Not believing in Ryan Luis
Right.
Rodriguez. That's correct. Yes, that is. You have all heard the spooky facts concerning this case. It's now up to you to determine that this film is guilty of the sin of being a bad movie and will therefore be condemned to the depths of movie hell. The scare taker will take you to the deliberation room to render your verdict. Right this way?
Yes, I've lost the document. Give me a second.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
A little harder than it looks. A little harder than it looks, isn't it?
You're right, but I had to just finish a song and then I have to go right into it. Okay.
Zip.
Right this way. You know, I seem to come down with a case of stigmata myself. It's a real thorn in my side.
He nailed the joke.
Should have been spear in my side. Oh, he almost.
But he also does. But he does a crown of thorns, and that's not the saying, Ryan. It's not the saying. God.
Scaretaker is a slave to the puns. So I have some insider knowledge about who's doing the interview, so I guess that makes me the foreman. Am I right, Ryan?
You are right.
All right. Okay, so let's just start right off the top. When Maynard's opening statement, he's like, there is just no confusing when this movie is made. I mean, this movie is so 1999, you could probably pin the month it was filmed, too. It's like, yeah, that was September 3rd, 1999. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, that train sequence with, like, the jumpy cuts. Oh, my gosh,
God.
that is so 90s.
When the robots in the Matrix thought that 1999 was, like, peak humanity, like, they just didn't see these movies, I'm guessing. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just not, it's not there.
But specifically a Fincher-esque 1999.
Yeah, so it is woefully dated. Now, whether or not you can count that as a pro or con, I guess you do have to weigh it. But I mean, it is something we've seen in this court where it's like these movies from the 90s that you kind of remember fondly, though I have no experience with this one. But,
I had never seen this before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had never seen it either. So, but it's just like, man, is this really what we want in the night? It kind of felt like, almost felt like Daredevil too, which was just, it was like this whole music video vibe.
Yeah,
Anyway,
a little bit.
So Maynard's case right off the jump, and then CK a bit of question begging, when it comes to Passion of the Christ. But okay, let's work with that, I suppose. I mean, I don't think this movie would be confused as being pro-religious, at least not pro-Catholic Church. I just think it's kind of funny.
It's not anti-Catholic. Well, I mean, it's not anti-religious. It might be anti-Catholic Church.
I think it's anti-Catholic because the whole twist is like the Catholic Church is going to go down because Jesus was a Protestant.
Yeah,
it's like the church is where I am. It's like, oh my God, Martin Luther was right. The whole church is.
But it's not anti-religious. It's not.
It's just. Yeah, I would say it's ambivalent at best because another point to Maynard, it just devolves into an exorcist story, and if she's possessed by a priest, why is the priest being such a jerk? It's like,
that's the part that bugged me more than anything.
Yeah,
it's like, he's not a demon. He's a priest who possessed her, and he possessed her because she happened to get his crucifix or his rosary. Like, what? What? Well, that is convoluted. But I didn't mind the gospel part of that. Obviously, it is based on the Gospel of Thomas, but that's just like kind of your writing stepping off point. I don't think that kills it as as an idea to use for your movie.
I mean, it's an old idea, right? That there's secret biblical texts that the church or anyone.
Well, the Gnostic Gospels, but there's that one specifically that was discovered in the 40s.
Yeah, I know, but there are a lot of non-canonical books in the Bible. I think maybe if I'm going to do some mental gymnastics to give CK a point here, there is a lot of Christian contrarianism that is getting very popular, and they do lean heavily on like these hidden books. It's like, oh, the real answers are in the Book of Enoch, and it's like, well, okay, maybe, I don't know. It's like, well, the Nephilim actually look like I know, and ancient astronaut theorists.
No.
Yeah,
you're supposed to be flogging yourself, Mr. Lawyer.
I can do two things at once.
He can. He figured out how the drawstring works. Yeah, so let me kick it over to you, Ryan. How are you feeling about the movie, the case? What do you got?
I remember very little of this movie, and I watched it a week and a half ago. It literally slid off my brain. The one thing that I really remembered was that at the end, when they pointed out that the Gnostic Gospels were heresy, and I remembered where I learned where the Gnostic Gospels came from, and that was Gilmore Girls. And I was like, I'd rather be watching Gilmore Girls right now.
Not only did this set up the Passion, it set up Gilmore Girls.
and I know for a fact that it is impossible to do an exorcism scene post 1973. We should just cut it out of all movies forever, in perpetuity, never again. It's been done. It cannot be improved upon, whatever. But the main question that I had the entire time was like, is this scary for people who believe in God? Like, I honestly don't know. I don't know what the target audience is for this movie, and if they're being repelled or appealed to.
I think the target audience is people in between, people who aren't entirely religious but have familiarity with it.
So like a Scared Straight situation.
No, but people want to have fun with it. It's like I don't mind a little heresy in my films, like those kind of people.
I don't know if it has a Scared Straight quality to it. That's always the problem with these religious horror movies, right? Is like the whole premise of this movie is like, yeah, no, Jesus really was the Son of God. Look at all this religious stuff that's actually happening. But in real life, we don't believe it. And it's just like, so it is kind of like this weird contention. But that's just not Stigmata. That's like almost every religious horror movie out there. Like that's even like the original Exorcist, It's like, oh, I'm losing my faith because I actually had to fight a real demon. And it's like, wait, hold on a minute, brother. What are you talking about here? So I think if a movie wants to do the religious stuff, they kind of have to pick a lane. And, are you going to be on the more serious side like Exorcist, or are you going to go fat Russell Crowe like the Pope's Exorcist, right? And if you can't, and if you kind of,
this is a little more fat Russell Crowe, I think.
I don't know. I think it kind of
this is morbidly obese Russell Crowe.
Come on,
can't get into the scooter.
Yeah, this movie is more, there's atheists and there's atheists, and that's kind of, this is like kind of appealing to those hot. And
agnostius?
No, like because they're so angsty about it. Like
gotcha.
shop at, like this movie's appealing to like the Hot Topic kids and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, church is so stupid. It's like, okay,
aren't parents unreasonable?
Yeah, so it's not that they don't believe in God; they're mad at God. It's a very fine distinction, I think, but it ultimately, I just don't think it all lands there because, again, going back to Maynard's main point, it just devolves into an Exorcist movie, and they just don't do a very good job of establishing the stakes because, again, this big secret is just like what.
Well, not to put you on the spot, but you say it just evolves into that. How would you end the story?
Well, I mean, they painted themselves into a corner. They really had no way to go. They needed, like Maynard said, you need a more interesting and monumental text of the Bible to lean on, right? Like the secret confession of Jesus that he wrote on the back of a piece of parchment that he ripped off when he fought Pontius Pilate.
I knew it.
If you make it up, no one will know.
Yeah, exactly. And then they basically made up the significance of this book, like Maynard point. I'm assuming Maynard's right. I didn't research that, but I'd have no reason to believe he'd make that up.
It's true.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, make something up then. Like have something really consequential or something, but they didn't do that. Basically what they said is like, yeah, it turns out like he's the living God and he's everywhere. And it's like, hell, Baptists believe that. That's not taking down the Catholic Church. It's like, come on. Yeah, I mean, I could kind of just keep rambling here. Ben, any other final thoughts you'd like to have before we look at locking in or anything?
No, I'm ready to lock in.
All right, then.
Oh, and that's to me? All right. As far as religious horror goes, I think this is kind of in the middle. I think it's a gentleman's 5. It's not terribly great. It's not terribly terrible. It is interesting to watch. It does the Stigmata stuff well, when she's actually like having her, wrist slit open and stuff. Yeah, the ending is terrible. I don't know if it sinks it because I don't really know where else they could have gone. It is a time capsule. If it's responsible for the passion, like Maynard said, that may be a point in his side, but I'm gonna go not guilty.
Wow. All right, Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
This is a gentleman's 4. Which pushes it into bad territory.
You guys are very different kind of gentlemen, I guess.
I was gonna vote in CK's favor, but then Ben had to swoop in and be the White Knight because I had so much fun listening to what CK
It's a
had
fun
to say.
movie.
I had no idea what was gonna come up next, and God, that was thrilling. God, can we do this episode again? Can we just start to wipe our minds and just do it again? That'd be fun. But no, this is not a good movie. You fucking kidding me?
It's not a good movie, but is it not a bad one?
It's a bad one. So I'm going to go guilty.
Yeah, ultimately I came in, I was looking to be swayed, and I think Maynard hit a lot of the notes that, I mean, frankly, a lot of the stuff I would have brought up if I had to prosecute. And there's just not a lot of meat on the bone for this movie, and it was a bit. God, could we call it a hacker? I don't know. Probably not.
It's
not
that.
I call it a hacker.
I think it might take itself a smidge too seriously to be a hacker, to be honest with you. I just think that the filmmakers were in over their head and they didn't know what to do. I'm going guilty. Let's go out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of the People versus Stigmata, we find the defendant guilty of being a bad movie.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not fair. Movie hell. The verdict is so rendered. Stigmata is hereby sentenced to serve eternity in the fiery pits of movie hell, where it will be forced to watch 3D movies with all the little halos around the lights. No, I'm sorry, wait, that's astigmatism. But whatever, that too. Court is adjourned.
Well, you gotta pull the lever. Send it to movie hell.
Drop it!
CK was right. It did come back from movie hell. Ah, it did come back.
I told you.
It's gonna be a reboot.
Fucking face off, cocksuckers! I swear to God, you just brought the rest of the apocalypse. We're already surfing through the apocalypse. You bring the rest of it on us. Sorry, go on.
What else can the apocalypse do to us at this point, honestly?
Find out next week.
This is Mumbly Mumblerson, freed from my prison in the fifth dimension of hell to haunt this godforsaken court. For you have no idea the misery headed your way. I'm reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Maynard Bangs, you really nailed this one. Would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
Yeah, how you doing, Mumbly? You sound different from the very real Mumbly Mumblerson that I'm familiar with.
That's because that guy was lying.
Well, all right, Mr. So-called Mumbly Mumblerson. This was an interesting case. I mean, ultimately, CK was right. We did send the movie to hell, and it came back. And so, what the hell can you do? I don't think we're going to be able to beat it again, but we did as much as this court can handle. So, I'll probably see the sequel or reboot or whatever they're going to do.
The Betweequel.
Ooh, Betweequel? I mean, wait, what? They're going to make it worse? Come on.
Thank you. I'm glad you're not talking anymore. And here comes C.K. Kimball. We should be wary of defending movies involving the Dark Overlord in the future. Excuse me, can we get a word on how you feel about today's verdict?
Yeah, I'm not even worried about it. You know, I'm set with my maker. I know where I'm at. I know what I've been doing. It's everybody else who have been watching their back, who have been checking out their sin eaters. Like, you're the ones who should be worried right now. You sent that thing back. It's coming back twice as strong. You better be looking over your shoulder. You better be holding that crucifix, because Stigmata 2, Electric Boogaloo, is coming for you. That's it.
Oh, no. And then what about the Passion 2? Is that coming after it?
There already is a Passion 2. Keep up!
Is there?
There is.
We need more guests to yell at Ben. It's therapeutic.
I agree with that.
Bring it on. Thank you very much. That's all we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis. I'm going to go lie down. You can do that when you're temporarily corporeal.
Oh, man.
Okay, guys. The last time CK was on, we did the Blair Witch 2, right? Which is a very similar, tone to it. Oh, no, you're right. Werewolf. It was Werewolf. The two times before that.
But CK,
which one is worse? Stigmata or Blair Witch 2?
Stigmata.
You can't be serious. You cannot be serious.
Blair Witch 2 has a ton of charm. And while it's very, very 90s.
It's weird.
Right.
It's weird.
And I like seeing that Jeffrey Donovan has not improved his acting at all. like he maxed out very early.
Did Book of Shadows, did that get away?
Yeah. Book of Shadows.
Good. Okay, what about where I never remember.
No, Werewolf in Paris had to be guilty.
What? Can I appeal
Even
that?
That's better.
Can I appeal that? I might want to.
Movie Hell? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's just another room that we keep the other movies in, man. It's just a hotter room with less ventilation.
That's one without the air conditioner, really. That's what
right, yes. As much as we appeal anything else, certainly we could pull stuff out of hell. Why the hell not? But CK, what have you been up to lately? What's been keeping you busy?
Oh gosh. So you guys know. So I've been running this drag show, DragsVille, since 2023 with Alamo Draft House. And we did take like a couple month hiatus, and I wasn't sure if we're going to come back. So it is honestly like a ton of work. But Alamo were really chill, and for Beetlejuice, they asked if we would come back to basically do a show on the release day. And so now we're back in the saddle. I'm feeling good about it. Like last show, we made a profit. We've been getting bigger and bigger audiences, and it's doing the thing I wanted it to do, which was it's a drag and variety show. I want it to be kind of a taster for everybody, getting people who wouldn't naturally go to a full drag show because it's a little too intense. Like the experience of experiencing drag and seeing it's not too scary. Plus,
drag light.
Drag light after work. And
less
for
filling.
anybody who's like drag and queer side, who haven't like hung out with all the musicians that I know, all these different islands of arts in Los Angeles, I'm trying very hard to tie us all together and communicate, because we're very quickly losing basically all of our venues that we can work in because we can't afford anything out here. But I really feel that if we all kind of work together on this, that we can rebuild this sort of a live event space So I'll just say this, and I won't keep rambling. I have this chip on my shoulder. I don't think people should be kept from being able to see live events just because they can't afford a ticket. And right now, the only way for people to even just break even is to charge like 10 and up. So DragsVille, every show, general admission is free. We sell like 4 tables up at the front, but it's always free. Like, you should not be barred from seeing live events because of how much you can pay. And it's going pretty well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, accessibility is always great, and everything is too expensive.
It's about volume, not price.
It's getting rough. Like, my old comedy theater is basically gone. They still exist, but the location's gone. It's almost something completely different. Like, a lot of theaters have shut down the last couple of years out here, and this is Los Angeles. Like, I can't stand for that. As long as I'm living here, I refuse to allow that to be reality.
Yeah, or they're forced to like turn to concessions a lot more and sell.
Exactly.
AMC's like turning them into bowling alleys and stuff.
Let
now, right?
people smoke inside again, and you'll have no problem filling out any live show.
I say,
You gotta think outside the box here.
Well, I say you'd have to designate smoking theaters. You know, they'd have, but we've got extra ones clearly. So Schlender, I've got an idea. Okay,
Yeah,
99-cent ATM machines.
Right next to the Pickle Palace. Let's do it.
Everywhere, and also maybe the other thing I said, but is there space for these shows to be digital at all? I mean, or is that blasphemous?
It's a little blasphemous because you do want, the way we work it out with Alamo is we really bump up their bar sales. And I make it a point that our bar menu is both mocktails and cocktails. And that's really helped us out a lot. People feel seen. They will show up to an event. But if we just made it digital, then people will just watch it on whatever and not actually come down and be a part of the whole experience. But to that note, we are trying to branch out. Basically, our DragsVille company is starting to spread into other venues. I use a lot of, it's not really that advanced, but our show is a little more technically advanced than a lot of others do. I have a live feed element that I utilize. So the entire time you're performing, I'm chasing, or one of my crew members is chasing you with a camera that is projecting you onto the screen in the back of the room. And what that does for us, since the room is kind of shotgun, it's longer than it is wide, is anybody walking out from a movie will be able to see exactly what's going on, especially when people drop down below sight lines and like, oh, cool, I'm going to go check that out, which they can because general admission is totally free, which is something that I want to try and establish at a couple of other shows. Like, we've been tooling around. I went to Watson Sillies and Dapper Puss. Like, we're checking out some of the other live shows to see whether or not this is something that we can start.
What was the second one? Dapper Puss?
Dapper Puss.
I mean, that shoots right up to the top of the list, right?
But if you guys ever come out here, I'll take you out to some drag. It's fun.
But do you like encourage like donations, or is there like a website? Like, so if someone does go in for free and they like it and they want to throw you a couple bucks?
Absolutely. Every show we create a Venmo list, not just for our performers, but also for ourselves. Like right now, DragsVille is just under my Venmo at CK-Kimball. But all that money gets shared amongst, and I do keep an entire chart with all of my receipts. So if there's ever any question on whether or not I'm just pocketing money, I can flip it out like, no, being totally honest here. Look, is everybody paid? Everybody doing
exactly. You're not going to get caught like Bernie Madoff. No way.
Exactly.
We got the paper trail right here. That's excellent. I mean, this is we're in the season right now. I mean, this is like Rocky Horror Picture Show season.
Mm-hmm. Full power. There's like 3 different shadow casts working right now in LA. Like, it's really fun to watch for sure.
There's
you guys should come out.
We'd have to, a few of us would have to get in a plane. Ryan's there. Well, I mean, there. It's the same state.
Away. Yeah, I was gonna say,
exactly.
California's really long, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that would be about a day trip for us, though. If it was 8 hours away, we'd probably push and make it. But we will let you know when we are on that side because it's going to happen eventually.
But yeah, it just might be fun to do a Reels of Justice kind of a live recording, especially. I'm not promising Alamo because I just do my own events there, but there is the possibility of setting you guys up in one of the theaters in front of the screen. You do kind of a live recording of one of your episodes, and then by audience vote, put on whatever shitty movie you want to have on the screen.
Well, now that almost makes us want. We really should look into do it.
Almost. I want to go right now. Let's sign this up. Come on, let's get started.
We'll start plotting and scheming, and we'll make all of this become
it's all about me, damn it.
Well, of course, Ryan, you're going to be the center. We're going to put flower crown on you, and you will be the May Queen.
I'm going to be the May Queen? I get
Exactly.
to be the May Queen?
Yes. Only if you cried, though.
I was going to say, he's going to cry.
always
though.
do.
Yeah. But only because it's so beautiful. Now, CK, we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see. And, of course, this is the spooky and Halloween season. So what's like a spooky, scary Halloween type movie that you think people should see?
Well, I've got two. One's non-spooky and
Go
one's
ahead.
spooky. And I'm going to do the non-spooky just because I feel like more people need to see it. Thelma. It's the movie about the older woman who gets scammed, and then she kind of goes on her own little version of an action movie to get the scammer back. It is absolutely delightful, not just in being like cute. It's incredibly well shot, very, very well written. I don't think I've seen the elderly like displayed with this much dignity while being this funny in a film in a really long time. So if you haven't like taken a minute to watch Thelma, you really should. It's
Richard
like
Roundtree's last movie.
What, did he die or
He died after he made the movie, yeah.
Oh.
It's even more reason.
Beautiful film, though. Beautiful film. Very touching.
God,
yeah, is this
so
the
good.
second or third time it was recommended?
Second
'Cause Ryan, you recommended it?
No, I didn't recommend it.
I think it's the second.
It's the second, but I didn't recommend it.
Yeah, a guest
Sounds like
recommended
there's
it.
a
I
lot
can't
of
remember
cool
who.
people, lot of cool
Yes,
people.
that is true and common. Oh, I think it was in the
It was
big,
the
it was the big
cinema
crossover,
episode.
right? Yeah. All right. So the year is 1998. The Furby is the hottest selling toy in America. Stone Cold Steve Austin is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And my recommendation this week was unleashed upon the earth. The admittedly Fincher-esque Fallen, starring the good John Goodman and the great Denzel Washington. Denzel elevates this film as a detective who discovers the serial killer he just put to death is actually an immortal demon, oops, who can inhabit anyone he touches, double oops, and he's out for revenge. I guess he's mad because he can't possess Denzel for whatever reason, and that really bugs him, because I can't see why he'd resent being executed since he couldn't actually die. But anyway, like the characters in today's film, Denzel deals with concrete proof of a higher power pretty well. He's still even determined to stop this demon. I think most of us would have just said, oh, well, that's out of my jurisdiction. But not Denzel. The story strains credulity a little bit, like expecting me to believe there's a child alive who could get sick of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Never happened. But the whole cast does a lot of heavy lifting, which includes Embeth Davidtz, Donald Sutherland, and James Gandolfini appearing as himself. But maybe the stealer of the whole show is Elias Koteas, the one and only Casey Jones, who so completely inhabits the serial killer character in his brief appearance at the top of the film that you can see his mannerisms generously mimicked throughout the film by every other performer who gets a chance to inhabit the role, or vice versa. You know, talk about making an impression. Still, do the filmmakers really expect me to believe Denzel Washington would get caught driving a Volvo? Never happened. It doesn't seem like Fallen is streaming anywhere at the moment, but I'm sure it will be eventually. So, time is on your side. Yes, it is.
Did we get CK's scary recommendation?
No, we're going to go right back to it right now.
Good point, Ryan.
Well done.
Right, and of course I wanted to break it up with mine, which is what we discussed earlier, Ryan. Now, CK, we're naturally going back to you for your very scary recommendation. Heckamendation. So go ahead and give us the scary one, now that it's been properly buffered, which is what everyone expected.
Is that what we're calling this buffering? Now that it's been buffered. I'm worried that I've already given this one before. I'm going to give it again anyway. Happy Death Day. I adore Happy Death Day. It's such a trifle. It's just fun. Like, I have nothing fancy to say about it. It's just a really fun horror movie.
Yeah, no, I love
like
that.
Don't you describe it? I feel like everyone's seen it.
I haven't actually seen it because everyone keeps recommending it, and so that intimidates
me. Two people
me.
recommend it, you'll watch it, and I haven't. She has.
You're right. Thelma's going to end up getting watched. I'm sure now that there's been two. It doesn't never really happen.
That one sounds really scary. Treating old people with dignity. Ooh.
That was the first one. Anyway, no, that's a great recommendation. I do need to see Happy Death Day. I think it's because D-Rock, if he recommends it, I'm always like, oh, that guy.
Quick to poo-poo it. The sequel's not as great, though. Not as great shakes. Trying to capture that lightning.
I like the second one. But I like anything with a multiverse.
I think because like that whole weird like combining like 80s movies with horror movies, it's been an interesting thing. And I think the what was that one that did it where it's like Back to the Future with the serial killer? Like that one was fun.
Totally Freaky?
Totally Killer.
Yeah,
Totally Killer.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Freaky is a different movie, a much better movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah, and then Freaky's good too with Vince Vaughn, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Catherine Newton.
Oh, dude, Vince Vaughn is so good at that. Hey, she's good too, not for nothing. So yeah.
A couple more sentences. That's going to count as your recommendations.
Yeah, I was going to say I better shut up.
The teenage girl is so hot.
Go
ahead and agree. Everyone knows. Go ahead and agree. It's fine. This is safe space, boys.
She was actually in her 20s when they filmed it, so it's okay.
Ben, why did you check? Well, give us the recommendation.
I didn't check. I was just guessing. My recommendation is Saint Maud, which is not a film for the people the least bit protective over their faith. The horror in Saint Maud is the blind faith that is invested into Catholicism, the need for that faith to absolve, and the inability to function in those moments where doubt takes over. Maud is a woman with a not entirely clear past, but becomes a devout nurse charged with caring for a dying atheist. She becomes obsessed with getting this dying woman to see the light, because if she can achieve this action of good, her purpose in serving God will be realized and maybe her debt will be resolved. Things don't go exactly according to plan, though, and that causes her to relapse a bit and start having flashbacks and visions, which is where the horror aspects start to come into play in that second half. Starring Morfydd Clark, I think I said that right, and if I said it wrong, please come on the show and correct me.
He's going to be pissed.
Before she landed that central role in Amazon's Rings of Power series, where she plays, I don't know who she plays, some elf that's clearly not Galadriel, at least not the way Tolkien wrote her. But to be fair, it's no fault of hers, because she is absolutely playing what the showrunners want her to do in that show. But she's also great in Maud, which shows her dynamic ability. It's a nuanced character that the narrative forms around in the same kind of Driver Joker-esque way, where we're very much inside her head and how she perceives things. Maud is seemingly mentally ill, and the way she uses her faith for the absolution of the Catholic practice of self-inflicted pain as a gateway of encountering Jesus indeed comes across as very horrific to the viewer. So, devout Catholics will probably find the film not being open-minded to their faith as they'd like. Atheists might find it a bit too easy to just point at the practices as being problematic, but I think it's in between those two viewpoints where this film truly lives. Ill-founded faith, mental illness, doubt, suffering, and an absolute need for an external force to make it all right again.
From the director of Love Lies Bleeding.
Yeah.
I made Maynard watch that.
Yeah. That strong woman. That was great.
Did we ever recommend that?
I can't remember.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I did like it, though. See? There's a lot of movies that we don't remember.
You liked it on mute.
What? You were there.
Ryan,
I was flogging myself.
Oh, me?
Yes, you. Of course you.
You're the only Ryan here, I think.
For my spooky recommendation this week, I want to salute the work of the late Larry Cohen, director of The Stuff, Q the Winged Serpent, It's Alive, Bone, Black Caesar, and the author of countless more. But this time I'm focusing on his 1976 film God Told Me To, which would easily be programmable as a double feature with Peter Bogdanovich's Targets. It follows a Catholic detective played by Tony LoBianco for the NYPD, investigating a series of assassinations and murders, the perpetrators all claiming that God told them to do it. While it unfolds like a traditional police procedural for the first, let's say, half hour or so, it takes a real turn into supernatural horror, and all I'll say is that aliens are involved. Ooh. I fucking love this movie, because I love anything that is impossible to pigeonhole or classify by genre. Oh, and Andy Kaufman's in it, with no lines. But some Andy is better than no Andy. God Told Me To is currently streaming on Amazon Prime, Tubi, and the Criterion Channel.
Sure, but Andy Kaufman's in 40 minutes of the movie. Just has no lines.
Just constantly waggling his eyebrows.
He could do it. Schlender, did you already give me one?
No.
I'll skip it anyway.
Okay.
Go ahead, give me it.
Okay.
All right, I changed my mind. I felt so
Maynard,
bad, that hangdog
Maynard,
expression.
When I saw Brian Cox in the credits, I was hoping for a hacker. But unfortunately, 2021's Separation takes itself too seriously, but is just too ill-equipped to handle any of the themes it is striving for. The movie shines with its creative ghost design, but ultimately the main character is not particularly sympathetic. And as the movie was going, I thought, oh, well, maybe that's the point. Maybe he's not supposed to be sympathetic. But again, no, the movie's just too ill-equipped. He was. So this is a classic case of a movie that zigs when it should have zagged. I suppose I should give you a brief synopsis. In the midst of a nasty separation, our main character's wife is unceremoniously murdered, and he finds himself in a pitched custody battle with the aforementioned Brian Cox and their ghosts. Or a ghost. Frankly, it's too exhausting to care about. So I'll give 1 cheer for some great ghost design, but alas, 3 to 7 jeers for overwrought storytelling that no one will care about 3 minutes after the film ends. Also, 1 cheer for being on Tubi.
Yay.
So you get a cheer for Tubi. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Wait, so what's good about the design? Are they like see-through CGI?
No,
are they
they're kind of based on
covered in flour?
Weird puppet things. It's a bit hard to describe, but they work.
You prove that. They're weird puppet things. Are
Yeah.
they ventriloquist dummies or something?
No, they're not ventriloquist dummies. They're not living scarecrows.
They're not silly. They're not those silly birds, right? That kind of dance
nothing like
around.
that.
I like those
Silly
birds.
birds.
You know the birds.
Which recommendation are you checking out, CK?
Oh, no, I'm talking to my electrician.
Sounds about right.
Got some bathroom lights to be installed in this office, y'all. Work's never done.
That is true. Absolutely. But once you get the lights in, then we can keep the lights out. But that's all the time we have for this week. But we want to thank our guest, CK, for joining us. Thank you so much, CK.
Thank you. It was fun to lose.
We're going to have you back, and we're going to fly out there as well and see if we can do something live
It's a great
at
idea.
the Draft House. But we will have to do it in drag.
Yes.
We hope everyone will join us then as well, as the Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels, keeps burning.
Count it.
Nailed it.
It's fun to lose.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.